A problem that many have been talking about lately is how hard it is to come by anything original anymore, or to even be able to think originally yourself. And there have been many things blamed for this issue in modern society, such as social media, mindless entertainment, and shortened attention spans. However, nothing has come close, in my opinion, to what is detailed in the book The Idea of a University by John Henry Newman, where he details how this problem actually started to occur over 250 years ago, when our education system changed from the Renaissance method of teaching, which taught the likes of William Shakespeare, Leonardo da Vinci, and Michelangelo, to the more modern style of teaching. And John Henry Newman, back in the 19th century, predicted that various issues would arise as a result of this change, with one of them being a lack of originality, and I think we're seeing the full front of that today. As he believed schools changed from drawing out what was individually within the student to a more conformist approach that would mold the student into a specific and predictable individual. And so from this book, we are able to gain, I believe, 3 key points on how we can rewire our brains to begin thinking and creating more originally the way that Shakespeare and Da Vinci did. And while you can still argue that we still have some original thinkers in the world today, in which we most definitely do, but they didn't become that because of the way they were taught, they developed that ability despite the way they were taught, and I'll explain later. And so without further ado, let's get to key point number 1, which is erasing the bad habits that school taught us. Has the Supreme Pontiff recommended it for the sake of the sciences, which are to be the matter, and not rather of the students who are to be the subject of its teaching? And so that passage there requires a few pages of context to understand it, but what he was saying was that the major shift in the way that Shakespeare's time was taught versus the way we are taught was that we are told that science is the subject, or English is the subject, and that we must study the subject as itself, whereas Shakespeare was taught that he was the subject, and that you can use the English language or science or anything to further explore the depths of yourself, others, how you relate to others, and really anything that you find curious about the world. School was about helping you best explore your curiosity, not helping you best explore a mere exploration method. And so why this shift in the way we were taught killed our originality and curiosity is because we all of a sudden were told to stop our curiosity and study the criteria deemed useful to study by the school. And so we never practiced using writing, instead we simply practiced writing itself, which teaches us to conform instead of express and explore. I'm sure we can all remember how we were told to write in a specific genre or write in a specific style, and that we can write about anything we want, but it needs to be in that specific style. Well, that right there just kills originality, because what it should have been is whatever you find interesting in the world, find a genre or style that best suits the exploration of that topic. Now all of a sudden, I'm sure every student would hand in something drastically different and unique only to them. Because if a student has a bad experience with a family member or someone he loves, he'll write a horror story about love. Whereas if another student has a different experience, they'll write a lamenting poem on love. Because what makes your original thought original is your past experiences, your curiosity, and whatever has your attention, energy, and focus. In other words, your perspective. And so, okay, that's all very heady, but how do we practically apply this to life? Well, first, you need to outline what your goal is. I'm sure if you clicked on this video wanting to learn how to think more originally, you probably want to explore something more creative, or just be more creative in general. And so the practical advice that you can apply to your life is to live before creating. Because when you live first, things will naturally occur to give you experiences which shape your perspective. You will also have things draw your attention, and you will grow curious about specific topics. And when this happens, you can use whatever it is you wish to pursue in life, whether that's engineering, engineering, painting, writing, or anything, you can use that to explore what you're curious about, and you can block out any outside noise and just go as deep as possible in a pursuit of trying to understand a specific topic, theme, or idea further by using your mode of expression. Because I guarantee you that all of the original thinkers you see in the world, being Jordan Peterson, Christopher Nolan, Greta Gerwig, or whoever, they explore their curiosity using their work. They don't explore their work themselves, and they weren't taught to do this in school, but they knew that they had to ignore that ingrained habit and follow the method of the creative people of the past. Because a book or film isn't interesting in itself, but rather what the book explores or what the film explores is what makes it interesting. Now to lesson number 2. Take your time. As the great man's guest must produce his good stories or songs at the evening banquet, as the platform orator exhibits his telling facts at midday, so the journalist lies under the stern obligation of extemporizing his lucid views, leading ideas, and nutshell truths for the breakfast table. Now, what John Henry Newman is saying there is that we need to stop putting strict deadlines on our creativity or original thinking, and that society today kind of forces us to rush ourselves in this department, and that's what makes it hard for a journalist to write a unique article, or a musician to come up with truly unique music, because a common misconception around originality is that it comes quickly, naturally, and without effort. That is because every original invention, idea, story, or thought that we see others produce, we only see the invention or thought itself, and so we think that the work is in bringing the idea to life, and not necessarily in actually coming up with the idea in the first place. Which is most definitely not true, because hardly anyone can naturally generate original ideas with no work towards it. I mean, some might be geniuses, but for the most part, they work towards that original idea. And so when we are rushed for a specific deadline, unfortunately, we end up having to sacrifice that originality. I mean, Dostoevsky didn't publish his first draft. He worked for months and probably years on that quote-unquote unique book. And so while of course we need to make money or keep a consistent routine or have discipline in place, we need to make sure it's not too rushed to the point where it just becomes cliched and run-of-the-mill. And so rather, if you want to have original opinions on things, you need to read widely and take time to think about it before expressing it to others. And when it comes to our creative work, we need to set a deadline, yes, because certain rules and constraints help creativity and discipline for sure, but we need to find a way to structure our lives so that we don't need too many deadlines for the work that we want to be original. It's why Shakespeare set up a business structure that allowed him to earn money off ticket sales at the Globe Theatre for various different productions, even when they weren't his productions. Therefore, he was able to earn money and could afford to live without having to rush out creative work often enough to keep himself afloat. Simply put, he worked really hard to make sure he had the time and the freedom to create well. And so this requires sacrifice in other parts of our life to compensate for not sacrificing on originality. Life isn't easy and we don't get handouts, unfortunately, so if we need to work a mindless job to get by in order to allow freedom for creativity, then sadly, we just need to do it. Lesson number 3. Beauty over usefulness. Liberal knowledge apprehends truth as beautiful. Useful knowledge apprehends truth as power. And so what John Henry Newman is talking about here is to follow where our energy goes, because beauty generates an energy in us, it attracts us for no useful reason, but just because it's good in itself. A beautiful song isn't necessarily needed for the world to keep turning, but the world would still feel a little more empty without that song in it. And so when thinking of ideas or trying to be creative, don't worry about the other use of the idea, or if it can lead to something else, simply follow the beauty and the energy that that idea is creating within you. And so therefore it leads you to write beauty into the world, whatever that beauty is to you. Or you can engineer beauty into the world, or build beauty into the world. Whatever it is, you need to follow that beauty and bring it into the world. And if that beauty has a use, then great. But if it doesn't, it's still great. It doesn't matter. Don't question it, just answer and follow it. Because we all have examples of beautiful things that we love that are completely useless, but that doesn't mean it's unimportant or pointless. And so when you adopt this mindset, it allows you to remove your head or any blocks you might have and just freely create, which will lead to more ideas and more paths opening up that are unique and original to you. But all in all, what are your thoughts on these 3 lessons to take from the idea of a university? What are your thoughts on the Renaissance method of education over the modern method of education? Let me know down below in the comments, and if you like this video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, take care.